Welcome to Palette Tips. I'm Kit Bell. Often we find ourselves painting subjects that have large areas of background, and that is when it is so important to mix enough paint. Trying to paint those areas with stingy amounts of paint on the palette will make it difficult to create flow in these areas. I like to mix enough background paint to get me to the end of the painting, whether that is today or sometime in the next month. So then we have to face the challenge of how to store the paint mixtures and keep them viable while we finish the painting. With watercolor, we can mix large quantities of the colors that we need in either wells on a palette or in saucers or something similar. With oil, we can cover the palette with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator. And with oil, it's not that difficult to remix the exact shade again. But with acrylic, well, that's much more of a challenge. Because of the color shift issue that acrylic paint has when it dries, it's very difficult to remix the exact same color you used before on the canvas. You need to be able to keep the paint mixtures from drying out, becoming hard, thick, gooey, or skimming over. Enter the Masterson Stay Wet palette system. These palettes come in a variety of sizes, and they also make replacement sponges and papers. These palettes will pay for themselves over and over by reducing paint waste. Today, I'll be showing you how I store the background mixtures for paintings in the smallest of these, the Handy palette. So now I'd like to share with you how I set up my Handy palette for the background for this painting of two seagulls. My underpainting has established a base color for the water, but as you can see from the reference image, I need a variety of blues and grays for the ripples. I would like to paint those in next, but I would expect to need to do some adjustments later as I finish the birds, hence the need to be able to store the paint mixtures until the painting is finished. So today I'm going to be talking about creating mixtures of paint that you want to be able to save. So for that, I like to use this Stay Wet Handy palette. This is the smallest size of the Masterson Stay Wet palettes, and it has a different sort of sealing mechanism. It seems to seal quite well. So to set up the palette, what I do is soak the paper as per the instructions on the package. I put down a sheet of Lysol wipe, which just helps keep the sponge fresh and prevents mold. The sponge I have is not soaking wet. It's thoroughly damp. When you press it, you'll get your fingers wet, but I don't want it sopping because that'll make the paint soft. So I put that down. I put down the wet paper, and if there's any moisture on the surface of the paper, I'll just wipe that off with a piece of paper towel. So now in this particular case, I want to mix up a variety of blues for my seagull painting for the water. And I want to be able to have this paint saved in a way that I can continue to access it and use it until my painting is complete. And in some cases, when I've done this for landscapes, large landscapes, the landscapes have taken me over a month to complete, and the paint has remained viable all that time. I've even had paint stay on one of these palettes for up to 2 months without it turning hard or funky or skinned or anything else like that. So what I'm going to start off with is the white. I'll put a good measure, and one of the things that's up on my wall is mix enough paint. So I'm going to put a good measure of white down in here. And I often will be mixing in some sort of a gel or product with it as well. If I want it to retain more brush strokes to have a little impasto going on, I'll use the extra heavy gel. In this case, I'm going to use a little bit of the heavy gel gloss. Again, I don't want a lot of brush strokes in this paint, but I do want it to be a little thicker than just paint out of the tube. So I've mixed anywhere up to 50-50 with the white. I don't really want that much in it this time because, water's not too much of an impasto thing. So always mix your paint with a palette knife. If you try mixing it with a brush, you are going to get most of it in the brush and not a lot of it on the palette. And you just keep on making little mountains and mixing it up. It's a little hard mixing in the gel to the white because you can't see it. So you just have to know that it's there and just keep mixing until you're fairly confident that you've fully integrated it. Those gels will dry translucent, transparent, so you don't want a glob of it somewhere on your painting that dries a totally different color than everything else. Now the reason why I mix it in with the white is that this is a light colored paint mixtures that I'm making, and so the white is going to be in everything. So if I put the little bit of gel or whatever product I'm using into the white, then I know it's going to be in all the different mixtures, and they're going to be a fairly consistent type of consistency. Now in this particular case, I'm looking for a variety of shades, values of blue, with also a little bit of differences in them. So the first thing I'll do, I'm going to save a lot of the white for the lighter values. I'm going to cut off a chunk of the white paint, and I'm going to mix the darkest value first. So in this one, I'm going to use a fair bit of cobalt blue, a little bit of the ultramarine blue, and I'm going to just put in a little touch of the anthraquinone blue as well. And if you want to know the names of these, especially that last one that's so hard to pronounce, I'll put those in the comments below the video. So this is going to be the darkest of the values of the ones that I'm going to mix. So this is going to be for the underneath sides of the waves, the ones that are not reflecting as much of the sky. Now, if this was water that was closer to land, you'd have to be concerned about what colors it's reflecting. Is there shoreline, trees, etc.? Because that color would be in the water as well. Now, if I have my painting handy, I will actually take a little dab of it and put it on the painting to see if that's the value that I want. And if that's the value that I want for the darkest, then I'm good to go. And if it turns out that it isn't, I can always cut off a chunk of this later on and mix some more blue into it to get a darker value. So it's not all is lost. Now I'm going to take a chunk of this and put in some more white. So this is a step down now in value. This would be a lighter value of the same color. And I'm going to probably do this 3 more times. So just depending on your situation and what you've got, you might need several different values. This makes it also very easy to build in a gradation. So if you want a gradation in a sky, for example, from the top being darker to the bottom being the lightest, it makes it very easy to do that. If you have to mix each layer of the gradation as you go, they'll paint and they'll dry, and then it will be very hard to make a smooth gradation. Now I've got quite a bit of white paint left over, but that's okay because I need to paint reflections as well. and the reflections will be of the birds and the feathers. So I need some different colors for that as well. And if I decide I want some different, put a little bit more of the anthracnone blue in a section or whatever, it gives me the option of mixing those as well. Always leave your little piles of paint kind of heaped up. You want them to, of course, we don't want them to touch the lid either, but we want them to be together so they don't dry out. So basically, that's what I'll do. I will mix up the various layers of paint, keep them on the palette. If I open the palette and it looks like it's getting a little bit dry, I'll just take my cheap little dollar store spritz bottle and give it a quick spritz to keep the moisture going in there. And whenever I'm not actually physically using it, painting with it, I'm going to put the lid on it. Often I will have several of these going at the same time. Perhaps one that's a sky color, another one for background mountains, for example, lake colors, and I'll just put a piece of tape on them and label them. Sky, mountains, whatever. It just makes it a little easier. So as well as my big palette, I'll usually have at least one or more of these going at a time.